all comes back to being able to be true to yourself and be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing this for me.
I want to look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, I look good. I'm feeling myself. It does. It changes your energy. It changes your attitude. Confidence is your best accessory. And it's like when you step into that and you step into that confidence and you realize like what you're wearing is actually a part of that.
This is The Energetic Leader, led by a team of 3 who have influenced people at the highest level of corporate, athletic, entrepreneur, and the business world. We teach through science and data-driven methods to help you lead through energy and influence. We don't just use our stories, but the stories of those who have walked the walk, been in your shoes, and ultimately excelled. Whether it's leading a team of 10 or 10,000, building a business of 1 million or 100 million, winning 1 championship or 10, they all have one thing in common: energetic leadership. So with that, step inside and let's help transform you into that energetic leader.
Welcome back to another week of the Coaches Council, and we've got another great guest here. Posted up out on the West Coast, short drive away, is Miss Ali Levine, and a lot of you will know her from being that TV personality, but there's many sides to Ali Levine, and there's many sides to all of you. And the way that we're going to really learn today is how do you do that when you have eyes on you, when you are leading teams, when you have other people around you that can impact the thought process of what you truly want to accomplish. But Ali's been able to do it in a truly authentic way that I think each and every person can learn from. So Ali, thank you so much for taking the time to really spend with us today and deep dive into a little bit more of your life.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that sweet intro.
Absolutely. So Ali, kind of just describe to us a little bit, or go in depth as to how you ultimately became this leader in this space, and the journey it took you to get there.
Oh my gosh. Well, such a long journey and still very much in motion. But basically, I have always worked in fashion. I always loved fashion since I was a super young girl. And since I was like 3, actually, I like always loved fashion. My mom said I would go like in my drawers and pick out clothes when I really didn't even know what I was doing. And she'd be like, that doesn't match. And I'd be like, but I want to wear that. And so I put things together from a really young age. So I feel like I was always really creative. And then my dad, I watched him, he has sold products in marketing and built his business from the ground up since I was a young girl. And he's now the #1 vendor to QVC. And I think I watched him like just really go door to door and hustle when I was really young, and see him selling products and doing whatever it took to, put dinner on the table and to make sure he was taking care of his family. And that really stuck with me. And then like he would take me to green rooms when he started working with QVC, and I get to go sit and watch him, back when he'd be on TV selling the products. And I got to be a part of all of that. And I think just being a part of that at a young age, I remembered even like 9, 10 years old, I would ask, like, can I not go to school today? Can I go with dad instead? And I would go with him every now and again and go to his meetings and just like sit there in awe and sit in the green room and watch him on TV and watch all the, things he would do and the magic to me of what it was. And I think at a young age, experiencing that, my work ethic was really there, from that start. And also too, he really instilled it in me. Like he would always tell us, my brothers and I, like, we are not rich, we're fortunate. And he like really embedded that into us of like, that could go away tomorrow. And so we're grateful for what we have, and we are fortunate for what we have. We've worked for this. We continue to work for it. Money doesn't grow on trees, kind of thing that we all hear. But I think really having that embedded in us and having that work ethic. And my dad, I remember one of my favorite stories when I was growing up was like, I really wanted this pair of Dolce & Gabbana jeans, and I found them on sale, and I was like, Dad, instead of like $1,000, they're $750. And I thought that was like such a deal. And he was like, yeah, it's still really expensive. And I was like, yeah, but I really want them. Like, can't you buy them for me for like a special occasion? And he's like, well, it's really expensive for even special occasions. So why don't you save up the money and get them yourself if you really want them? And I was like, well, I don't have a way to save money. So long story short, my dad, let me work at his company and just do like clerical work. And he made me, earn that money to be able to buy the pants. And at the end of the summer, I had enough money to go buy them. And I was like, I want to buy them. And he's like, why not? And I was like, because I worked so hard for this. And he's like, there you go, And so I think from a young age, it was instilled in me to have that work ethic, to have a good attitude, to always like be grateful for what you have. And even if you have really good things around you and you're quote unquote, spoiled with certain things because you're fortunate, it's because, you worked hard to get it and it's not just handed to you. So I've always kept that in mind as an entrepreneur as I've moved along in my career. And so when I first started, in fashion, and I studied fashion in school, and then got my first job with Target as an executive of their management program, and opened one of their flagship stores in New York. And then after working there, I went and worked in corporate and did a bunch of different fashion companies like Coach and Talbot's and Lacoste and many others, and started getting my feet wet in the design and development side. And then I realized I wasn't really feeling as fulfilled as I thought I would. And at that same time, that's when the stock market crashed back in the day. And it was crazy because like everyone's jobs were gone, especially design. And so like Coach like wiped us out. Like it was like, oh, sorry, I don't have a job anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks, universe. And so it really made me like rethink like what was my purpose and what did I want to be doing. And it ended up being a blessing in disguise because it pushed me to really look at myself and say, I love design, but am I really being fulfilled in the creative side of what I want to be doing? And I wasn't. I was really kind of like being told in a box of like what I was allowed to create, what I was allowed to do, versus like what I had started out doing, which was like putting crazy outfits together and like dressing however I wanted to and just doing all these different things that fed my creativity. And so I went home, kind of started saving money all over again because I couldn't live in the city and afford it anymore. And I started like kind of taking a step back and thinking about like, how am I going to do this? What do I want to get into? And styling wasn't really a term back then. It was really more shoppers and costumers, and styling, wasn't a blown up world that it has become now. So I started reaching out to different friends and family in the entertainment industry, and I did have some connections. And so I reached out and I said, can you give me advice, or can you get me an interview so that I can, speak to someone to see what maybe I want to do? So I got an interview with Oliver Stone and his incredible production team. They were getting ready to do a movie in New York, where I'm originally from, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. And I got to interview for that. And I was told basically like, hey, this has nothing to do with fashion. Like if you're lucky, eventually you might have some things to help with, but like we need help with just scripts and coffee and donuts and just running around doing whatever we need you to do. And I didn't have any other job opportunities at this point. Like I literally was just on unemployment, didn't want to be on unemployment. I wanted to work, and I had no other job opportunities in sight. And it was like, why not just take a chance and, try this? So I did, and I started working crazy long hours for Oliver Stone, like 18-hour days, and getting up at like 4 a.m. to meet him in New York City, to bring his coffee, perfectly to him. And it was a wild ride, but it led me to, eventually working on a bunch of movies and different TV shows, and getting to meet all these incredible people and fall in love with the shopping and costume side of the industry. And then once I started really getting my feet wet in the costume side, I then started getting more projects. And I went to Atlanta and I worked on a movie called Big Mama's House with Martin Lawrence. And I met this team from there, was from LA. And we really hit it off. And they were like, what are you doing in New York? If you want to do more of the like, creativity and everything, like you should be in Los Angeles. And I was like, I don't know, I'm from New York. Like I've always, been here mostly. And they were like, well, you should go to LA. And they offered to basically kind of help me with my first stepping stones to go to Los Angeles. So you don't get that many chances in life where they say, hey, here's an opportunity. So I packed my bags, told my boyfriend, who's now my husband, hey, I'm going to LA. He followed me, and, here we are now, a decade later. And it's been a wild ride, but, I came out here and I started working for them and got my feet wet and did whatever I needed to do to get my union hours and to advance my career and do what I needed to do right by them for getting me an opportunity. And afterwards, I realized, oh my gosh, again, I'm not feeling fulfilled in what I'm doing. I finally have my costume union like badge. I'm finally doing all these things that I thought I wanted to be doing, but it's not fulfilling me in the costume side like I thought it was going to. And I had to have like this hard reality check with myself to be like, wow, you moved out here. You're not like loving what you're doing. Like, what are you going to do? And so I said to them, like, what do you think I should explore, since I'm really not loving costume? And they were like, well, you've said from the beginning you love the red carpet and the creativity and the more ever, trending stuff. Why don't you look into like styling? But I had no experience in styling and I had no connections in styling. So here I am. I finally built up a bunch of connections. I've got a bunch of jobs, opportunities. I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm in the union. And here I am now walking away from this opportunity because it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And so I start reaching out to all these different stylists and telling them, hey, I have this experience in costume, but not in styling, but like, could I come and meet you to potentially get an internship? So I started all over again. I kind of had to check my ego and say, hey, you know what? I don't have experience in this, so I have to move forward and get experience. And I started interning for people like Brenna Lupadora of Kanye West World Throne Tour, and Monica Rose when she used to style the Kardashians, and Emma Stone Stylist, and many others, B. Ackerland, and incredible people who gave me opportunities as an intern to just work for free and learn the industry and learn how to do what they did. And eventually, because I was doing a good job, I started getting part-time assistant work with those different stylists and started getting my career off the ground again. And, after quite a long time of doing that, I started getting asked to style different people who are these no-name Hollywood, D-list celebs that wanted me to dress them. And of course, for free, but it was like an opportunity for me to be like, hey, okay, I get to dress this person and put my name on it and get this experience. And so I started working with all these different PR companies, styling their clients for free for almost a year and a half, just doing styling as much as possible on the side of what I was assisting, where I was making money with those stylists, and styling my own clients to build my own book. And eventually I started getting my own PR behind it and Best Dressed and all these places. And my name started getting out there. And, all of a sudden Ali Levine Design was born. And I started getting known for dressing these people. And then certain celebs would get, big movies out of nowhere, or a TV show, which we know can happen, overnight sometimes. And they were, and I was getting opportunities because I was dressing these people. So, I mean, it's a very, very long story, but basically that's kind of the skinny, the skinny of it, of how it all started and how Ali Levine Design on the styling side was born. And that was like my real first step into entrepreneurship, because like even when I was working in costume, I was working, with union and having kind of a little bit more of a guarantee with jobs. When I totally took that away from myself and went full blown freelance, I let go of, any type of security. And that's pretty much been my life ever since.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in here. So I got to ask, because that's an amazing journey, because you talked about having to start over different times. I don't know if I could have done that. That's pretty awesome that you did that.
Thank you. It was hard. I'm not going to lie. Like it was very much of an ego check, because at first it was like, oh, but I already did all these movies. Like I've worked with huge celebrities on movies. Why do I have to start over and intern for these celebrities on styling? And it was like, well, because even though the worlds are mixed in, like they're not the same as far as what you have to do. So you have to relearn. And it was the same thing when I worked in retail to corporate. I had a huge job with Target. I was making really good money, and then decided to leave because I didn't want to do retail and I wanted to do corporate. And everybody in corporate was like, well, you have a great resume, but nothing goes along with your corporate job. So you have to start at the bottom. And I had to go from making $100,000 a year at Target to literally 30 grand a year in corporate design, and it was like, oh, major ego check. Like, you may have great skills, but they're not adding up for what you want to do. So I've had that happen to me quite a few times in my career.
It's like you're the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going and going. And what pushed you through that? Like, what was there? Like, I'm going to do this. Was there, you just had to find your passion? What kind of led you through? Because I'm being honest, I left the corporate world and I had to start from scratch again when I started my consulting and my other businesses. And I don't know if I'd want to do that again. So what kept you going?
I think the fact, I was young for sure. I was young 20, so I had a lot more energy than like late 30s now. And being a mom of two, but I think my creativity led me. I really, really wanted to continue into design and development. And I love Target and I love retail, but I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I think that, they offered me to go do design in Minnesota, but I went out there and it was way too cold and way too small, the environment where Target was. And I was originally from New York, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And I think once I had that reality check of like, okay, I was handed an opportunity where I could have easily moved over and made good money and done design, but I don't want that. And I don't want that lifestyle. Like, I guess I'm going to have to, trade off somewhere in order to get where I want to get to, and so I think that was more of my inspiration. And then once I got my first, production assistant job, as hard as it was and as intense as it was, I think every day I went to work, even 18 hours a day, and it didn't feel like 18 hours. It felt like 5 hours, because I loved what I was doing, and I loved that I was learning again. I was getting to experience, and I was seeing all these new, people and adventures. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm like free in a sense, and I think it was the same feeling. It was like once I got out of costume and I felt so locked down in the same routine of what I was doing every day as a costumer, and then getting to step on the set as an intern, even though I wasn't given as much responsibility, I felt like everything was brand new, and it was a whole new world of, new rules and new this and new that. And so it was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna feed this creativity, and it kept me going. It kept me inspired. But I'm not gonna lie, there were times where I was like, I'm exhausted. I've been styling like literally 100 people for free now. When am I gonna get paid? I definitely had those moments of like banging my head against the wall, for sure.
So you also mentioned the crash that happened, and we're in a tough situation right now. There's a lot of people that lost their jobs, they've lost their businesses. I've always been interested because you're kind of, I would say, in an industry where it's not necessarily a necessity. How big has it been impacted by COVID and what's been going on right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know, and I feel so bad for everyone. Obviously, me being someone who is an entrepreneur, I'm used to doing a lot of different jobs to make things happen. So I just kind of had to like pivot and shift a lot of things around. But in the beginning, it was hard because everything came to a halt. Like my influencer work completely stopped because brands didn't have the empowerment or the courage to spend, and they were too afraid because everything was very risky, so they all kind of pulled back. So all my campaigns came to a halt. All my partnerships were supposed to turn into 2021 came to a halt. So all of that was very hard because I was like, oh, okay, those incomes I planned on weren't going to happen. And so the first few months were definitely difficult, and it was more just like figure out how you can save, don't spend anything, and just kind of buckle down. And then once things started opening up again, then I started really realizing like, okay, my influencer work is picking back up again. People actually are looking for more content at home. I need to utilize this and like get creative in this space more than I usually do and deliver more to my community of what they're looking for. How do I uplift them? How do I empower moms? Like really being creative and intentional about what I was creating. And I always was, but I feel like I had to take it another step further because of everyone's, reality and being home. And I think styling at first, obviously completely was just gone, but it's interesting now into 2021, I'm getting more and more people that want me to style them on Zoom and FaceTime and Skype and help them feel good, even if it's just for Zoom, because they've been in their pajamas for a year. And like, and look, no shade, because I have too, like pajamas are comfortable, and it's easy to stay in your pajamas and sweats because you're home. But it's like, we all know, like when you get dressed and you feel good, and like me, if I have makeup on today for your interview, like you feel more like yourself, you feel good and you feel yourself, and you're like, all right, and now I feel productive and I'm going to do a bunch of things after what I do today. And so I've been helping people like feel that again and get that, feel empowered in their clothing and reshop their closets, because maybe they don't have a budget right now to go shopping or they don't want to go out in the world. They don't want to order online or whatever it may be. Everyone's different, but I've been helping people like help shop their closets, which is something that wasn't really a service of mine as much before. And now it's becoming like one of the main things I'm doing is like, hey, let's shop your closet and recreate your looks. And like, let's have fun with this and help feed your creativity, And so I'm grateful that in the beginning, of course it was intense, but now it actually has gotten busier and I'm getting more and more opportunities because more and more is at home. I mean, even my TV segments, I've been asked to do things remotely from home. And so I'm grateful that a lot of my work is shifting. And I know it's going to continue to shift. So I'm just kind of trying to, ride the wave as far as that's concerned.
It's funny you mentioned that because my wife works at the hospital, and about a month or two ago, so she starts at 5 o'clock, or she leaves the house at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got up because I make her coffee before she goes to work. And she's wearing her boots and she's wearing like this fancy dress. And I'm like, where are you going? Aren't you going to work? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what happened? Like, are you sure you're going to work? And she's like, I got to start wearing my clothes.
Good for
Like there's,
her.
yeah, because she was just wearing her regular, she was wearing her
Work.
tracksuit to work. Yeah. And then she started dressing up again. So it's pretty funny you mentioned that, because I think people are starting to say, let's start
A long
wearing our clothes.
time now. We've all
Yeah.
been in our sweats and our pajamas for a long time, and it's like, as cozy as that can be, it's like eventually I think you start to feel like exhausted from that, and you start to also like not feel as productive and sluggish, because whether people realize it or not, like clothing is a real expression of ourselves, and how we choose to show up for ourselves, forget everybody else, but show up for ourselves, that's most important. And when, I always say like confidence is your best accessory. Like when you're wearing something that makes you feel confident, it changes everything. So good for your wife for recognizing and being so self-aware to be like, you know what, I need to feel pretty. I need to like feel good, even if this isn't for anybody else but me. Like I'm going to wear this. So I love to hear that.
You're so right. And my fiance spent 8 years as the VP for Christian Louboutin. And so she's got this ungodly shoe collection. And and over the course of our time in quarantine, she goes, I just need to get out. I just need to wear some shoes. And we need to look good because we have date nights. So every Thursday is date night
I love that.
in our household. So we know that something special's happen on Thursday, and over COVID, we had to get creative where we live in Florida. So down by the beach, we'd get our stuff going, or when we were in New York, we would take it out to the park or whatever it is that we were doing. Yeah. And as things started to open slightly, she was like, I still remember we went to this bar. There's this dive bar. It was the only thing that had opened, like extremely old, dungy, grungy. And she comes down the stairs, same thing, and just boom. I was just like, oh my God, where are we going? And she's like, I don't care where we're going. I just needed to look good this morning or tonight. And so it's one of those things that I hear you, where it changes your energy. It changes the way in which you show up. And so kind of talk to that a little bit about what you've noticed and seen in clients you've worked with, or people that you engage with on a day-to-day basis, and the psychological change that happens in your energy level and which you're able to bring to everything that you do.
Yeah. So like I said, I love that also your fiance did that. I think that's amazing because, confidence is your best accessory. And it's like when you step into that and you step into that confidence and you realize like what you're wearing is actually a part of that, it changes everything. It's like I tell people, it's the same with when, you get ready in the morning and you choose to do your face or don't. Like, you feel a certain way, at least a lot of women do. Like you feel a certain way when you put your face on, and I used to laugh with my grandmother. She's on the other side now, which my first daughter is named after. And I used to like laugh when my grandmother would get ready, even if she was in her robe, she would like get ready and get her face together. And I'd be like, you're in your robe. Like, why are you bothering? And she'd be like, because if my face is together, then like I feel good. And then I usually like have more energy to want to then maybe get dressed, even if I'm just going to be home once I have my breakfast and I go through my morning routine. And I didn't get that back in the day. And now I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense because like when you care about, how you look, even if you're not around people, but you care about it for you and you're like, okay, I want to look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, I look good. I'm feeling myself, it does. It changes your energy. It changes your attitude, and like certain colors you wear. Like, I don't think people realize how much color can play into your mood. Like if you're wearing, no offense, I know a lot of guys love to wear black and neutral, especially women, if you're wearing black all the time, like, and you're feeling off or like, a little bit like, off moody or whatever, like sometimes it can really be the color you're in all the time.
Totally.
Yellow is a happy color. Like when you put yellow on, it makes you happy. It makes other people happy when they see it. Like it's very interesting, the psychology around colors and fashion. And I don't think people realize like what an art it is that you're actually telling of like what you're wearing and the expression you're giving to yourself in the world when you're choosing to wear whatever you're wearing. And I think a lot of times we just write fashion off as like, oh, it's just a trend, or, oh, it's just, this cute outfit, and like, which it is, but there's so much more to it when you actually get into like the psychology of fashion. And I think now, me styling so many clients from home, I'm seeing that. Like when I help people get ready and I'm like, hey, let's go through your closet. Oh, what's that bright colored sweater? Like, why don't you try that on? And they put it on, they go in the mirror and they're like, oh, wow, this looks great. And I'm like, have you worn that before? And they're like, no, just sat in my closet. And I'm like, okay, well, you just looked at yourself in the mirror and you're like, wow, that looks great. Like, I'm feeling myself. Like, well, why do you think that is? Because you've been in your, black, PJ loungewear all week. Like, all of a sudden you put a color on and you're like, oh, I feel awake. I feel alive. It's about being like mentally and emotionally fit besides physically fit. Like, we put such an emphasis on, oh, I need to work out and I need to do this. And like, that's all super important, of course, and keeping yourself healthy. But then there has to be like this mental and emotional, and psychologically fit component as well. And like, I believe that a lot of that also comes from what you wear and the clothing you choose, and how it flatters you and like what looks good on you. Like, back when the world was open and I would dress people, I would tell people like, it's the 4 F's. It's function, it's fit, it's fashion, and it's fabric. And it's like, it starts with function first, because if you put it on and you don't feel like you can function in it and it's something that doesn't feel comfortable, like, you're not going to wear it correctly because you're just going to feel weird in it. And then, the fit on top of that, if it doesn't sit on you correctly and it's like hanging off you, or it's big, or it's too tight, like, it's not going to work. But so those things have to like come into play before you go, okay, and now the fabric, am I comfortable in this fabric? And then the the fashion of it and the trend of it and the way it looks, like, that's incredible. And like, don't get me wrong, I love fashion and I love how something looks on me, but if I don't feel good in it, like, I'll wear it for 2 seconds for a picture, but then it's coming off, you know what I mean? So it's like, you have to like make sure that all those align to feel good in what you're wearing. And that still goes for when you're at home. It's like, maybe you don't have to do the whole outfit because you're on, a Zoom and you want to keep, comfy on bottom. That's cool. I know a lot of people are like, Ali, I just dressed me from, the chest up, or from the, waist up. And I'm like, okay, I could do that. But, if you choose to do that, then it's like, well, then think about like what makes you feel good and what feels comfortable, that what you're wearing. And like, if you like to wear accessories, like, add accessories to dial up your look and feel good and to make it more exciting. Like, I think a lot of people forget how important fashion can be to our own like mental health and like our own just emotional capacity, besides the fact that like, oh, I want to look cute in that outfit, or I want to post a cute picture on Instagram. Like, there's a lot more to fashion than we give credit for. And I think also too, like, we always look out to like the external of like what the media tells us or what celebrities tell us to wear. And I obviously know this from coming from being a celebrity stylist. And I think like that's great when you can find things you're inspired by. But I also think there's something really cool about this time too that I'm experiencing with a lot of my clients, which is that a lot of them are trying new trends, and a lot of them are trying, new ideas of things they would have never tried, because they're like, well, I like this and I'm not seeing anyone do it, but I'm also not really seeing anyone do anything. So like, I feel like I can do more. And I love that, because it's like coming back to them and who they are authentically and stepping into their power and being like, well, I feel good in this, so I want to wear it. And that's like what fashion is all about. It's like empowering yourself and loving how you feel, like how your fiance was like, I'm just going to look fabulous and wear my shoes and this cute outfit because I want to, and I want to feel good. Like, that's how everybody should feel when they get dressed, or at least I feel so.
I love where you're going with this. And I want to tie it back into what you spoke about in your continual journey about being able to check your ego at the door and starting again from the bottom, because so often we feel that we're performing or doing things or dressing for other people, and we're not living authentically. We're not living true to ourselves. We're not living true to what feels good for us because somebody else says, this is what you should look like. This is how you should behave. This is the job you should have. This is the title you should have. This is the home you should live in. This is the car you should drive. This is how you should act with your family. But rather being truly who you are and understanding that, hey, this is my passion. This is how I love to look day in and day out. This is the job I love to do. This is the business I really want to start. And so kind of talk to that a little bit about how do you find your authentic voice while navigating that space?
Yeah, I love what you said, because it's so true. I feel like in this time, there's a lot more of people coming back to themselves, which is like, I think amazing, because I think for so long we've been following whatever has been told to us or whatever has been shown to us. And it's funny, even with styling for myself, when I would dress a lot of my celebrities, I would get a lot of like heat and slack from a lot of different management and agencies and people, because I would always want to take them outside of the box of what was being shown. And they'd say, well, no, this is what, we want to do. And we want to be like so-and-so. And I would say, but why do you want to follow that person? Because there already is that person. Why don't you want them to brand of who they are and have them be themselves? And I got a lot of pushback for that when I was styling, like a lot. And it's interesting because a lot of times I would do that with my client and I get them to trust me and they would get best dressed, and it wouldn't surprise me because I didn't do anything like crazy special. Like, sure, I came up with some really cool looks and I had some really creative ideas, but overall I tapped into their confidence and I tapped into their authentic selves. And then that exuded on the red carpet and on the national cover and everything they were doing. And that's the light that, shined through. And then all of a sudden everyone's picking up on that energy and that frequency and they're going, oh my God, this looks amazing. She got best dressed. And they think it's just because of like, the outfit, which sure, the outfit had to do with it, but it's the entire transformation of like getting them ready, getting them to feel themselves and be like, I authentically feel like I align with this outfit. I feel good in what I'm wearing. I'm trusting in this versus going with what the trend is and what's being told to me to do because so-and-so looks like this and I should look like them. And I'm looking to me and looking like me. And so for me, I think, I'm not going to lie, that's been a really hard journey for me as well, and a continuous one, because being someone who is a celebrity stylist and in the public eye, a lot of times there's a lot of pressures to be a certain way, show up a certain way, speak a certain way. And I've had to really like check with myself and say like, but is that really you? Or like, is that how you really feel? And, I've had a lot of those moments where I've done things, of course, because it's Hollywood. Like, pre being a mom, I was doing Botox and fillers all the time because I felt like I was on camera so much and everybody was judging me and I looked a certain way and I needed to, do this with my face, and other people in Hollywood had this and this, that. And I followed a lot of that because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do. And, I think a lot of that happens, very often by what we're seeing and what's put in front of us. And I think that between being on the show on Bravo Stripped and then becoming a mom and being really exposed to this like real raw world and like true, like authentically Ali, and not able to do Botox and fillers. I'm, brand new, pregnant and breastfeeding and all the things as a mom, you can't do those things. And then not able to get glam because I have a brand new baby and I'm, really in the trenches and like not able to get myself together like I normally would. Don't have a makeup team around me, like to get me ready for red carpet, like all the things that I was used to that were like my norm, like went out the door. And I think that was like a hard reality check and ego check of like what you're speaking to for me. And when I went through my postpartum depression with my first daughter, Amelia, I kind of felt like the universe was like checking me because I kind of felt like I wasn't maybe getting that. And I was like fighting it really hard and I was getting like really depressed over it and like just really angry. And then my postpartum depression hit and I really hit a real low. And when I was in my therapy and doing all these different things to, bring myself back out of that, a lot of the things that came up were the fact that I wasn't dealing with my authentic self and I wasn't dealing with my own traumas and my own issues and things that I was maybe following that weren't mine. And I wasn't using my authentic voice and all these things that like I didn't realize I was kind of just pushing to the side because I was following along with a lot of other things, especially in Hollywood. And so I think that now being a mom of two, it's forced me in like the most beautiful way to step back into like who I truly am and my authentic self and who I always was, but maybe in some ways was afraid to be. And because I want my girls to be their authentic selves and I want them to know like they're amazing as who they are, I got to walk the walk. Like I got to practice what I preach. And so they need to see that, so I do like affirmations and meditation every day. And my, almost 3-year-old Amelia, like we do affirmations in the mirror together every day and she loves them. And if I forget, she pulls on me and says, Mama, affirmations? Like she knows, and that makes her feel good. And so I think, it's an ongoing journey with my own soul and my own self, but I'm a lot more aware of it now. And I'm working on, really always checking with myself. And if I feel like one day I'm off because maybe I'm on social media too long one day, being that I do work in it and that is my job, some days I have to check out and say, you know what, I'm staring at too many people. I'm comparing too much and this isn't healthy. So I have to sign off for the rest of today and just let myself cool down and go do a meditation, maybe do some breath work, go play with my girls and just submerge myself in the present, and not be so locked in of like what so-and-so is doing or what's happening, because comparison is like literally the thief of joy. And I've learned that the hard way a lot of times in my life. And I think that we forget that we're comparing ourselves to someone else that we think maybe has a beautiful picture, but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So we have to like really like look at ourselves and say like, okay, but what aligns with me, and like what do I subscribe to? What makes me happy? Because just because someone else tells you like, oh, hey, this meditation is going to work, if it doesn't work for you, then like it doesn't matter. Like you can pretend, but it's not going to do anything for you, you know? So it's like you have to subscribe to yourself. You have to decide what's going to work for you and adopt different things from different people that you love and are inspired by, but bring them back to you and make them yours. And I think that's been my ongoing thing I've been learning as a new mom, is like how to make everything mine and really step into being my authentic self. And that's what I now really try to encourage and empower others, especially moms, to do and find as they step into motherhood and step into their whole new journey of being a woman, you know, in that light.
I love that so much, Ali, because it all comes back to, I don't care if you're in talking about business, I don't care if you're talking about entrepreneurship, I don't care if you're talking about your family or what you're wearing on a day-to-day basis. It all comes back to being able to be true to yourself and be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm doing this for me. This comes from a passion deep within. This is a fire that's lit deep within me, and everybody else is going to see it glow, because that is what's attractive. That is what people buy into. That is what people say, God, I want that. I want that. I want to look and feel that way. It has nothing to do with the way in which things are put together or the money you have, the car you drive, the house you live in, but the energy in which you show up with every day that truly become, and everything else that's around you then is just a tool. Everything else is a tool that lives and breathes from the deep fire that is situated deep within you.
That's right. It's so true. It's like that fire within you ignites, and then everything else, like you said, becomes a tool. And I believe, and obviously I can tell you too, like everything is energy. And so when it attaches to that, like everything becomes around that frequency, and it just flows, and you bring those types of people into your life and those types of opportunities, and it all just comes. But like a lot of people, I think, you know, when we talk about like manifesting, right? Or, you know, oh, call this in. Even for me, like back in the day, I remember like, you know, writing down all these things that I wanted and nothing would happen. And I'd be like, oh, this is bullshit. Like this doesn't work, you know? And then what you're speaking to right now, you being authentically yourself, you being the light, you drawing all that in, then all of a sudden things start coming and you're like, but wait, I didn't even ask for this. But it's like, because you're aligned with that, because you are of that frequency and that vibration, and you're bringing that light, everything else wants to attract to it and more. And so things come that you don't even expect them to. And so you're right. It's like, we've been told for so long that like, you know, if you do this, you'll reach this type of level in corporate. If you do this, you know, you'll be the top of, you know, this company. If you do that, you'll potentially could become the next, you know, big star. If you make this, you'll get to drive this car and all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But I think especially in this time now with the pandemic and everything, like we've all learned that like those things don't make us happy. Like those are just extra materials and extra things, and they're fun and they're great and we all enjoy them, myself too. Like I love my Louis Vuitton shoes, but they're not essentially the thing that makes us happy. And it's like when you step into you, like you said, authentically you, and can look in the mirror and say like, I like who I see in the mirror. I align with this person. I'm doing what I want to be doing. I'm going with the fire inside of me. That's when everything else feels good. And then everything else becomes a tool and you enjoy it for what it is, and you don't look to it from a place of lack of like, what is it going to do for me?
I love that. And it's so true. And the more we can live in that, the more sustainable it becomes, the more impactful it becomes, and the more truth inspired it becomes. And that's what life is all about. So Ali, where can our audience engage with you? Where can they find you? Where can they reach out to you and get more of this truly authentic Ali and help bring out their own level of authenticity?
Well, thank you for having me. I love this conversation. So you can find me at Ali Levine Design on all social media, ALILEVINE Design, no S, just design, all one word. Instagram is where I am at the most, but I do show up on my Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and everyone's like, get back on TikTok. I'm on and off TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter. My YouTube is relaunching, so I am adding videos by the week, so you can check out some videos there. My podcast is Everything with Ali Levine, and it's really, truly, if you really want to get me and get deep, it's like a real raw conversation with all my different guests and just their own experiences in life and what they've learned. And yeah, just, alilevine.com is my website. I love to connect with my community. So if there is something, you heard today that resonated and you want to say hello, please do, and let me know that you found me through Justin's show.
I love it. I love it. And the other thing we always ask our guests is because our audience is big action takers, they're massive action takers. What's one thing our audience can do for you?
Oh, what can they do for me? Oh, well, wherever you find me, whether it's my podcast, my Instagram, just hit the follow, hit the subscribe, share something, whatever resonates with you, whatever episode, whatever post, anything, just share it and tag me too, so I can repost and share the love and just share why it resonates. Because I think the more we share the things that really resonate with us, that really align authentically for ourselves, the more we're going to draw in those people who do that for us.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So everybody listening, as you go out, as you start to embark on your truly authentic self, challenge yourself. Figure out, is this what you were meant to do? Is this what you were meant to be? And if it's not, understand that your ego can be checked. It can be left there, and it's okay to start again from the bottom, because not only will you get further from where you are and living authentically, but you will get there faster, and it will be worth it. The journey will be worth it, because as Kobe Bryant said, it's not the pinnacle that matters, but it's the journey that we're on that's a privilege to be living in.
Yeah.
And that is truly what it's about and what it means to live authentically. So stay hungry, stay humble, and we'll see you next week.